National Service experience from my previous tours with the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, in Southeast Asia. I had also been stationed in Italy as a U.S. Marine. BNDD had decided to draw upon my experience in order to comply with the President's mandate. From Florida, my family flew to Madrid, rented a car, and drove to the eastern coast of Spain. We headed north, crossing into France, and were able to visit an old CIA colleague in Saint-Jean-de-Luz. Returning to Madrid, we flew on to Rome, Italy. My wife, Irene, and I had met and married in Rome in 1959, when I was a U.S. Marine Embassy guard. She had been the secretary to the U.S. Air Force Defense Attaché there. Rome is also where I first came into contact with Federal Bureau of Narcotics, FBN, agents. Two of them would become instrumental in my move from the CIA to the BNDD years later. A third would eventually become the head of the Kabul BNDD office, where we would cross paths for a short time. Air travel to Afghanistan was difficult in those days, to say the least. Upon leaving Rome, it was necessary for my family to stop in Tehran, Iran, for several days. Flights from Tehran to Kabul were only scheduled to depart a couple of times per week. It happened that we had arrived in Tehran just as the country was about to celebrate the 2,500th year of the Persian Empire. The Shah's government had spent 10 years coordinating events to commemorate this important anniversary. Tens of thousands of the Shah's best friends had been invited from around the world to participate in the festivities. We were not among the honored guests, but we looked forward to the celebration activities taking place at our hotel and throughout the city. As we settled into the hotel, the air of excitement could hardly go unnoticed. We enjoyed the first 2 days of our hotel stay, but on the morning of the third day, our fun came to a sudden halt. I answered a knock at the door to find the hotel's junior manager, who announced that my family and I needed to vacate the room immediately. He stated that the planning for the 2,500th anniversary events had failed to include hotel accommodation for the hairstylists, who had arrived alongside many of the female guests. Ours and other rooms were being belatedly requisitioned, and we would need to leave. It took a visit to the manager's office and a lot of strong language before staff would even agree to help us locate other lodging where my family could stay until our upcoming flight to Afghanistan. Their selection of alternate quarters turned out to be a shabby, run-down, 6-story building in a less than desirable area of central Tehran. The lobby was minute, possessing only a small desk. There was a creaky, open elevator that ran up the center of the building. The rooms fanned out closely around it. Ours was a cramped, dingy room with only 2 small beds to sleep the 6 of us. It took a monetary bribe to have a basic cot added. It was not until later that night we discovered that we were probably the only legitimate overnight guests the hotel had accommodated in quite some time. Throughout the night we heard loud, raucous laughter, doors slamming, and the constant running of the elevator. I opened our door to investigate what was behind all of the noise. Being a quick study, I realized that my family was staying in a brothel. Fortunately, more strong words and yet another monetary bribe got us back into our original hotel the very next day. I was beginning to learn how to operate in the Middle East. Our journey from Tehran to Kabul was no less inauspicious. We made the next leg of our trip in an Ariana Airlines 727 aircraft. This airline was a subsidiary of Pan American Airways. The pilots were either American pilots or American-trained Afghan pilots. The cabin crews were always male. The front third of the aircraft was partitioned off for carrying cargo. A large sheet of 3/4-inch plywood separated these 2 main sections with a door hanging from the plywood. One was to board the plane, pass through the cargo section, and move on into a cramped passenger area. The flight was fairly long and quite turbulent as we passed over the isolated desert and rugged mountain areas of Iran and Afghanistan. Some of the more devout passengers spread their prayer rugs along the aisle to say their prayers while in flight. There appeared to be some disagreement among them as to the true direction of Mecca, because several faced in opposite directions. The aircraft finally came in high over Kabul,